Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I am Deneen and this is Design by Denine. Today I am teaming up with my friend Sule from My Style, My Colors to do a Trash to Treasure collaboration. If you're not familiar with her channel, you're definitely going to want to go and check her out. She does beautiful DIYs and home decor in a very beautiful color palette. I have left a link to Shule's channel in the description box below, as well as to her Trash to Treasure video. So when you're done here, please go and check her out and be sure to tell her that Deneen sent you. I have pulled a few items from my own trash pile and I have used them to make up this lovely set of decor items. If you want to see how I made these pieces, stick around and I'll share everything. So I call this project my Pringles project, although as you can see this isn't really Pringles, it's Great Value, which is kind of a no-name brand. And as you can see, barbecue is my flavor of choice. A coat of flat black paint and the first step is complete. I did also spray a little bit on the inside, so if you happen to see inside the vase you'll see black there as well instead of that sort of silver tin foil. So I'm using this Bling Wrap, it's non-adhesive, and I'm going to cut some little long strips of it down the one side. And because I'm doing it on a black background, I'm actually going to take the time to trim off the excess threads down the side. I'm using E6000 to put this on, and to start we're going to do the top and bottom of the vase or the chip container. And on the top and bottom I went with 2 rows of the bling, and there are 2 different directions you can cut. Like you'll notice that if you cut in one direction you'll get a much larger space between the gems, and if you cut going crosswise you'll get it much tighter. So I've gone with the tighter version on the top and bottom. And just repeat the process for the bottom of the vase. So you can see here that I cut it a tiny bit short, but no worries because we can always just pop a little extra piece in there to solve that and we're all good. So I found that this piece kind of reminded me of my mom when she was younger and I was very little, and she would get all dressed up and she would wear these long black gloves with a bracelet on top, and that's exactly what this reminds me of. I decided that a fun way to put on the bling would be to follow the diagonal lines that wrap around the container. I pre-cut some of my strands so they're long enough. I've pre-measured them and they're long enough to wrap all the way around, following the diagonal lines that go around the container. So I'm using E6000, and this works really well because it doesn't dry super fast and it's not lumpy. So you want to trace around the line on the container, and don't worry too much if it's not perfect because your bling is going to cover it up. And then you're just going to take your Bling Wrap and you're going to wrap it around and make sure you keep it straight. Worry less about the glue and more about keeping it straight because you won't see the little bits of glue so much when it dries. Here's what it looks like with the first row completed. So you can see that the bling is following the contours of the packaging. So I did the same for the next row. I just found another line. So there was there's probably 6 lines on the container. They're not all evenly spaced. I just found another line and I did the same application with the Bling Wrap following the line. Then I did another set of lines on either side of the first 2, and these ones are a little bit closer together. I actually followed the contour of the container on one, and the other one I just eyeballed it so it was even with the other one. Now the vase has 2 sets of lines, and I'm going to add a third one. So this is the start of the third one. And here's what it looks like when all of the Bling Wrap is completed. I, however, decided it needed just a bit more. I thought it was a bit boring the way it was. So I'm using these stickers. You can get these at both Dollarama and Dollar Tree. They're a combination of rhinestones and pearls, super pretty. And I am going to put them in the wide spaces on the vase. This is super easy to do. You just start at the top in one of the wider spaces. There's 3 of them. So I'm going to add a piece of the new trim into each of the wider spaces until all 3 of them are filled in. So here's what it looks like with all of the bling and embellishments attached, and that is one classy chip container. Here's a little important tip if you don't want your stickers to peel off. I find a lot of these stickers tend to peel after time, so it's a good idea to just go back and glue both ends, so the top and the bottom ends. You don't need to glue all of the sticker down, just the top and the bottom, and the rest of it will hold itself in place. One potential issue with this vase once it's all done is that it's super light, so it wouldn't take much to topple it over. But no worries, I have an easy fix for you. Just going to take a bag of rocks that you buy at the Dollar Tree or any dollar store, so about $1 or $1.25 investment, and just plop the whole thing in the bottom without even taking them out of the bag, and then it's nice and sturdy. So this is a flat iron box, and I was actually putting this in my recycle bin the other day. I was doing some cleaning and I was going to chuck this out, and then I thought, I should probably make something with this. It's kind of a nice sturdy little box, so I'm going to bling it up and make it into a little storage box. So I'm planning on covering it in this mirrored adhesive film that I purchased off Amazon. I'll link it below. I just measured out how wide the box was and then cut on one of the cutting lines to get the right size piece to wrap around the box. So I started at the top using the flap of the box first, and I've got the paper sticky side up, and I am laying it down, and then I'm going to flip it because it's easier with this paper if you work with it partly down and then you basically rub back and forth, and that smooths out all the bubbles as you're putting the paper on. On the edges, I trimmed the excess foil off of the lid of the box, and then I flipped it over to the inside, which gives a nice clean finished edge. I also used a little bit of extra E6000 to hold down the areas where the adhesive wrap was folded over, so I glued it down with E6000 and held it in place with painter's tape. On the corners and edges of the box, I just cut in the corner sections, and then I tucked over the adhesive wrap, and then I went back in with my X-Acto knife and trimmed off those pieces. This is kind of an outtake because I ended up covering over this, actually replacing this finish, but this will just give you an idea in case you want to do something a bit different. So this is another different style of adhesive paper. I actually got this one at Dollarama, and I applied this onto the front and the sides, and I thought I had kind of a nice contrast, but in the end it was a little bit too, I don't know, like a bit too checked, a bit too farmhousey for me, which is not really my style. So I opted to swap it out and replace it with the mirrored finish, but I thought I'd show you what it looked like just in case you prefer it. Now that the entire box is all mirrored up, I decided to add some more mirrors, some little mini mirror tiles. So if you've never used these before, they're actually pretty easy. You just fold over a section and cut with scissors. To apply, just peel off the backing and then attach them. They're adhesive, and I wouldn't be careful about running your finger along the edge because they are glass and they are sharp. So I just sort of align them with my finger and then press them down. I applied the mini mirror tiles to all 4 sides of the top of the box, which made a frame which I'm going to fill in shortly. So because this box has an additional sort of a ledge on the bottom, I'm also applying the mirror tile to that so it looks cohesive. This little box of curly whirlies I ordered from Amazon quite some time ago for another project, and I never ended up using them. So when I was digging through my craft stash trying to find something to use on this box, I dug these out and I thought they would work really cool on the top of the box. So these came in 3 different shapes. To give them a high contrast with the silver, I decided to paint them in gloss black. I played around with the shapes until I got a pattern on the top of the box that I liked, and here is how I laid it out, both in real time and in time lapse. So now we're going to use some E6000 and we're going to glue all of these little curlies into place. And I highly suggest laying them all out first and then gluing them on one by one. Use your glue sparingly, otherwise you're going to end up having it squish out underneath your shapes. So this is a little bit hard to see with the reflection, but if you do mess up and you get glue glopped on there somewhere where you don't want it, it's easily removable because of the mirrored paper. You can use nail polish remover. This is non-acetone nail polish remover, and a paper towel, and it just wipes all those little bits of glue off. So now that the top is all glued in place and is gorgeous, I decided I really needed to do something with this front flap. So I'm going to take 2 more pieces of the curly whirlies and I'm going to attach them to the front. And here's a little trick to get rid of those little strings of glue. When you use E6000, sometimes you get those little strings. So I'm just using a bamboo skewer and then I'm just running it around all the edges, and that'll take all those little strings out so you won't end up with them in your project. You heard right, Gatorade candles. Step 1, drink the Gatorade and remove the label. Next, we're going to give it a coat of silver Rust-Oleum metallics. So one of the things that I really liked about these containers that they already have all these grooves and indentations in them. I'm using this non-adhesive Bling Wrap. I pre-cut all of my pieces so that they were ready to go, and then I used E6000 in the grooves and then applied my Bling Wrap. Here it is with all of the Bling Wrap in place. And then I decided to add a little bit more zazazoo. So these are some sort of zigzag stickers, and I am going to add them to the spaces in between the Bling Wrap. And it's looking better already. Now it's time to deal with that bottleneck. So we're going to use our trusty Dollar Tree napkin ring in its natural shade of silver, and we're just going to sort of wiggle it on and then pop it in place. I wanted to use a different finish for the larger groove at the top of the bottle, so I'm going with these little mini mirror tiles. So I'm going to wrap one row around the upper groove and then another one just below the neck of the bottle to tie it in. So this next piece is totally optional, so I felt like I needed to do something else with these indented areas on the top portion of the bottle, and I decided I would give them a little glitter treatment with some Mod Podge. So I just used a small artist brush and I filled in the recessed area on the Gatorade bottle with some Mod Podge. And then I sprinkled a generous helping of chunky glitter. This is the bottom piece of a little terracotta pot. This is just a mini one, and I got this at the dollar store, and I'm going to use this for the top of my candle holder. I gave it the same coat of paint as the rest of the candlestick. I attached it using E6000. I applied the glue to the top of the napkin ring and then placed it on the upside down terracotta pot bottom and let dry overnight. And here is my trash to treasure vignette all together.